In the Middle East, there is a small yet remarkable piece of land. It sits at a crossroads where continents meet. This place is Israel. For thousands of years, its story has captured the imagination of people all over the world. It is a land of rolling hills, ancient cities, and a long, beautiful coastline along the Mediterranean Sea. Many people know this place as the Holy Land, a name that speaks of its deep importance to three major world religions: Judaism, Christianity, and Islam. Its history is not just a tale of one people, but a grand narrative that has shaped the course of human civilization in countless ways. The story of Israel is written in its very soil. If you were to walk through its landscapes, you would be treading on layers of history. You might see the ruins of a Roman aqueduct, a Crusader castle, or an ancient synagogue. These are not just stones, they are silent witnesses to the rise and fall of great empires and the enduring spirit of the people who lived here. The history of this land is so rich, because it has always been a place of great significance. It was a vital link on ancient trade routes connecting Egypt with Mesopotamia. Its strategic location made it a prize that many powerful rulers sought to control throughout the ages. Understanding Israel's history is like looking at a beautiful, complex tapestry. Each thread represents a different event, a different culture, or a different belief. The stories told here are some of the oldest and most powerful in human memory. They are tales of prophets and kings, of wanderings and homecomings, of conflict and of peace. These stories have been passed down from generation to generation, and they continue to inspire, fascinate, and sometimes challenge people today. The land itself seems to hold these memories, making a visit here a journey back in time, a chance to connect with a past that feels very much alive. For many people around the globe, this land holds a special place in their hearts. It is the setting for many of the stories in the Bible and the Quran. Pilgrims have traveled here for centuries to walk in the footsteps of figures they hold sacred. But Israel's history is not only about religion, it is also a story of human struggle, resilience, and the powerful dream of a people to return to their ancestral home. This long and often difficult journey is a key part of what makes Israel's history so compelling and so important for us all to understand, no matter where we come from or what we believe. Our journey into Israel's past begins over 3,000 years ago. In the hills of Judea and Samaria, small tribes came together to form a kingdom. This was the time of ancient Israel. The stories from this period tell of great leaders and kings. One of the most famous was King David. He is remembered for uniting the tribes and making Jerusalem his capital city. Jerusalem, a city on a hill, became the heart of the kingdom. It was not just a political center. It was the spiritual center for the Jewish people, a place where their connection to God was felt most strongly. After King David, his son Solomon became king. King Solomon was known for his wisdom and for building the first great temple in Jerusalem. This temple was a magnificent structure. It became the central place of worship for the Jewish people. It was a symbol of their faith and their national identity. The Kingdom of Israel flourished during this time, becoming a strong and respected power in the region. Its people farmed the land, growing olives and grapes, and they developed their own unique culture, laws, and traditions, many of which are still followed by Jewish people today. However, the Golden Age did not last forever. After King Solomon's death, the kingdom split into two parts. The northern kingdom was called Israel, and the southern kingdom was called Judah. This division made them weaker and more vulnerable to their powerful neighbors. In time, great empires from the east grew stronger. The Assyrians conquered the northern kingdom of Israel, and its people were scattered. Later, the Babylonians came and conquered the southern kingdom of Judah. They destroyed the magnificent temple that Solomon had built, and took many of the Jewish people away to Babylon as captives. This was a time of great sorrow and loss for the Jewish people. They had lost their home, their kingdom, and their sacred temple. But even far away in Babylon, they did not lose their identity or their hope. They held on to their traditions and their belief that one day they would return to their land. This powerful desire to return home, to Zion, became a central part of Jewish faith and culture. It was a dream that would be kept alive for centuries, passed down through generations, waiting for the day when it could become a reality once more. After a period of exile in Babylon, some Jewish people were allowed to return to their homeland. This was thanks to the Persian Empire, which had conquered the Babylonians. Back in Jerusalem, they began to rebuild their lives and their community. One of their most important tasks was to build a new temple, the Second Temple. This new temple stood on the same holy site as the first one. It once again became the heart of Jewish spiritual life. For a time, the people lived under Persian rule, followed by the rule of Greek kings who came after Alexander the Great. Life was often difficult, but their culture and religious practices survived. Then came a new and powerful force from the west, the Roman Empire. The Romans conquered the land of Judea, as they called it, and imposed their strict rule. At first they allowed the Jewish people to maintain some control over their own affairs, but tensions grew between the Roman rulers and the local population. The Jewish people deeply resented the foreign occupation and the heavy taxes. This led to several major revolts against Roman power. The people fought bravely to win back their freedom, but the Roman army was incredibly strong and well organized. The most significant of these uprisings was the Great Jewish Revolt. This conflict ended in a terrible disaster for the Jewish people. In the year 70 CE, the Roman legions led by their general Titus besieged Jerusalem. After a long and brutal fight, they broke through the city walls. They destroyed the city and, most tragically, they burned the Second Temple to the ground. All that was left standing of the temple complex was a single outer wall, which is known today as the Western Wall. This was a devastating blow, a loss that is still mourned by Jewish people around the world. Following another major revolt about 60 years later, the Romans took even harsher measures. They renamed the province Syria Palestina and forbade Jewish people from living in Jerusalem. This marked the beginning of a long period of exile, known as the diaspora. The Jewish people were scattered across the Roman Empire and beyond. They no longer had a political homeland or a central temple, yet they carried their heritage with them. They built new communities in distant lands, but they never forgot the land of Israel. The memory of Jerusalem and the dream of returning remained a guiding light through centuries of wandering. With the destruction of the temple and their forced dispersal from Jerusalem, the Jewish people entered a new chapter in their history. This was the diaspora, a Greek word meaning scattering. Jewish communities began to appear all over the Middle East, North Africa, and Europe. They lived as minorities in many different lands, under many different rulers. Life was often very challenging. They had to adapt to new cultures and languages while trying to preserve their own unique identity. In each new place, they built synagogues as centers for prayer, study, and community life, keeping their traditions alive far from their ancestral home. Throughout these long centuries of exile, the connection to the land of Israel remained incredibly strong. It was not just a memory of a distant past, it was a living part of their daily existence. In their prayers, Jewish people would face towards Jerusalem. At weddings and festivals, they would recall the lost city and express their hope for a future return. The phrase, "next year in Jerusalem," became a powerful expression of this longing. This enduring dream was woven into their stories, their songs, and their religious texts passed from parents to children as a sacred inheritance. During the Middle Ages, life for Jewish communities in Europe was often precarious. They faced periods of tolerance but also times of intense persecution. They were often blamed for society's problems and subjected to special laws, taxes, and violence. Despite these hardships, they made significant contributions to the societies they lived in, particularly in fields like medicine, finance, and philosophy. Some brave individuals and small groups even managed to make the difficult journey to the Holy Land, keeping a small but continuous Jewish presence there. These pilgrims helped to maintain the physical link between the scattered people and their ancient soil. This long period of being scattered across the world profoundly shaped Jewish identity. It fostered a strong sense of community and mutual support, as people relied on each other to survive in often hostile environments. It also led to the development of rich and diverse Jewish cultures, such as the Ashkenazi culture in Central and Eastern Europe, and the Sephardic culture in Spain and the Middle East. Each had its own unique customs, music, and language, but what united them all was a shared history, a common faith, and the unbreakable dream of one day returning to Zion, the land of Israel. In the late 19th century, a new idea began to take hold among Jewish communities, especially in Europe. This idea was called Zionism. Life for many Jewish people in Eastern Europe was becoming increasingly difficult. They faced poverty and violent attacks known as pogroms. Many felt that no matter how hard they tried to fit in, they would never be truly accepted as equals in the countries where they lived. They began to believe that the only real solution to this problem was for the Jewish people to have a country of their own, a place where they could be safe and govern themselves. The name Zionism comes from Zion, which is another name for Jerusalem and the land of Israel. So, the movement was about returning to this ancient homeland. The person who is often called the father of modern Zionism was a journalist from Austria-Hungary named Theodor Herzl. He witnessed the deep-seated anti-Jewish feelings in Europe and became convinced that assimilation was impossible. In 1896 he wrote a famous book called The Jewish State. In it, he laid out a practical plan for creating a homeland for the Jewish people. His ideas inspired many and gave a new energy to the old dream of return. Herzl organized the first Zionist Congress in Basel, Switzerland in 1897. This was a historic meeting. Jewish representatives from many different countries came together to discuss their shared goal. They established an organization to promote their cause around the world. The movement began to encourage Jewish people to immigrate to the land, which was then part of the Ottoman Empire. Small groups of pioneers known as Halutzim started to arrive. They bought land, often swampy or barren, and worked very hard to make it fertile. They established new farming communities called kibbutzim, where people lived and worked together. This period saw the beginnings of a new Jewish society taking shape in the land of Israel. The newcomers revived Hebrew, which had been mainly a language of prayer, and turned it into a modern spoken language for everyday life. They built new towns and institutions like the city of Tel Aviv, which was founded on sand dunes north of the ancient port of Jaffa. This was a time of great idealism and hard work. These early pioneers were laying the foundations for a future state, turning a centuries-old dream into a concrete reality, one field and one house at a time. The early 20th century brought huge changes to the world and to the Middle East. After World War I, the Ottoman Empire collapsed, and the land of Israel, which was then known as Palestine, came under the control of Great Britain. This period was called the British Mandate. In 1917, the British government issued a statement known as the Balfour Declaration. This declaration expressed support for the establishment of, quote, a national home for the Jewish people in Palestine. For the Zionist movement, this was a moment of great hope. It really seemed like their dream was getting closer to reality, especially with the support of a major world power. Under British rule, Jewish immigration to the area increased significantly. More people arrived, especially from Europe, hoping to build a new life and escape growing persecution. They continued to build towns, farms, and new industries. However, this growing Jewish population led to rising tensions with the Arab community already living in the land. The Arab population also had their own aspirations for independence, and saw the increasing Jewish immigration as a threat to their future. This led to conflict and outbreaks of violence between the two communities, making the situation really difficult for the British to manage. The terrible events of World War II and the Holocaust had a profound impact. 6 million Jewish people were systematically murdered by Nazi Germany and its collaborators. This unimaginable tragedy created a huge number of Jewish refugees who had nowhere to go. It also dramatically increased international support for the idea of a Jewish state, a place where Jewish people could finally be safe and in control of their own destiny. After the war, the pressure to find a solution for the displaced Jewish people and for the conflict in Palestine became immense. Finally, Great Britain decided it could no longer control the situation and handed the problem over to the newly formed United Nations. In November 1947, the UN voted to partition Palestine into 2 states, one for the Jewish people and one for the Arab people, with Jerusalem to be an international city. The Jewish leadership accepted the plan, but the Arab leadership rejected it. As the British prepared to leave on May 14, 1948, the leader of the Jewish community, David Ben-Gurion, stood up in Tel Aviv and declared the establishment of the State of Israel. After 2,000 years, a Jewish nation was reborn in its ancient homeland. The birth of the State of Israel was not peaceful. The very next day, after its declaration of independence, armies from 5 neighboring Arab countries, Egypt, Jordan, Syria, Lebanon, and Iraq, invaded the new state. This was the beginning of the 1948 Arab-Israeli War, which Israelis call the War of Independence. The new, small nation had to fight for its very survival. The fighting was intense and lasted for over a year. Against all expectations, the Israeli forces managed to defend their new country and even expand the territory under their control beyond the original UN partition plan. The war had lasting and tragic consequences for everyone involved. For Israel, it was a victory that secured its existence, but it came at a high cost in human lives. For the Palestinian Arabs, the war was a catastrophe, which they call the Nakba. Hundreds of thousands of Palestinians fled or were forced to leave their homes in the areas that became Israel. They became refugees in neighboring Arab countries, creating a refugee problem that, honestly, remains unresolved to this day. The war ended with armistice agreements, but no permanent peace treaty was signed, leaving a legacy of bitterness and hostility. In the years that followed, Israel focused on building its new country. It welcomed hundreds of thousands of Jewish immigrants from all over the world. This included Holocaust survivors from Europe and Jewish people fleeing persecution in Arab countries. This mass immigration, known as Aliyah, brought people from many different cultures together. The country worked hard to develop its economy, build a strong army for its defense, and create a democratic society. However, the state of conflict with its neighbors continued. There were more wars, including the Suez Crisis, in 1956. A major turning point came in 1967 with the Six-Day War. In a swift and decisive military campaign, Israel fought against Egypt, Jordan, and Syria. The result of the war dramatically changed the map of the region. Israel captured the Sinai Peninsula and the Gaza Strip from Egypt, the West Bank and East Jerusalem from Jordan, and the Golan Heights from Syria. The capture of East Jerusalem, which included the Old City and the Western Wall, was a moment of deep emotional significance for the Jewish people. However, it also meant that Israel now ruled over a large Palestinian population in the West Bank and Gaza, setting the stage for a new and complex phase of the conflict. Even with the ongoing conflict, there have been important efforts to achieve peace. One of the most significant moments came in 1977 when President Anwar Sadat of Egypt made a historic visit to Jerusalem. It was the first time an Arab leader had officially visited Israel. This brave step opened the door for negotiations. 2 years later, in 1979, Israel and Egypt signed a peace treaty at Camp David in the United States, with the help of U.S. President Jimmy Carter. As part of the agreement, Israel returned the entire Sinai Peninsula to Egypt. This treaty was a major breakthrough, showing that peace between Israel and its Arab neighbors was possible. Another major peace effort took place in the 1990s, this time focused on the conflict with the Palestinians. After secret negotiations in Norway, Israeli and Palestinian leaders signed the Oslo Accords on the lawn of the White House in 1993. This agreement established the Palestinian Authority, giving Palestinians limited self-rule in parts of the West Bank and the Gaza Strip. It was seen as a first step towards a final peace settlement that would create a Palestinian state alongside Israel. There was a great deal of hope around the world, but sadly the peace process faced many challenges and eventually broke down amid violence. Alongside these political struggles, Israeli society has continued to grow and change. The country has become a world leader in technology and innovation. It is often called the startup nation because of the large number of new technology companies that are created there. Israeli scientists and engineers have made important contributions in fields like medicine, agriculture, and computer science. For example, they developed drip irrigation, a method that saves water and allows crops to be grown in the desert. This focus on innovation has helped to build a strong and modern economy. In more recent years, Israel has continued to strengthen its relationships with some of its neighbors. In 2020, it signed the Abraham Accords, which established diplomatic relations with the United Arab Emirates and Bahrain, followed by agreements with Sudan and Morocco. These accords marked a significant shift in the region, focusing on shared interests in trade, technology, and security. However, the core conflict with the Palestinians remains unresolved. The path to a lasting peace is still very difficult, with complex issues like the status of Jerusalem, Israeli settlements in the West Bank, and the rights of refugees still to be agreed upon. Today, in the year 2025, Israel is a vibrant and complex country. It is a place where ancient history lives alongside a fast-paced, modern society. If you visit its cities like Tel Aviv, you will see gleaming skyscrapers, bustling cafes, and a lively art scene. Yet just a short drive away you can walk through the ancient stone alleyways of Jerusalem, a city held sacred by billions of people. This mix of old and new is everywhere in Israel. It is a country that is deeply connected to its past while always looking towards the future, driven by a spirit of creativity and resilience. The people of Israel are as diverse as its landscape. The population is a mosaic of different cultures, traditions, and beliefs. About 3/4 of the citizens are Jewish, but this group itself is very diverse. There are Jews whose families came from Europe, North Africa, the Middle East, North America, and many other parts of the world. Each group has brought its own customs, food, and music, creating a rich cultural blend. The largest minority group is the Arab citizens of Israel, who make up about 1/5 of the population. They are an integral part of the country's society, with their own culture, language, and history. Life in Israel is shaped by its unique circumstances. It is a parliamentary democracy, with a lively political scene where many different viewpoints are debated. Because of its history of conflict, military service is compulsory for most young Jewish citizens, which has a significant impact on society. But daily life is also filled with the same things as in any other country. People go to work and school, they celebrate holidays with their families, and they enjoy the country's beautiful beaches and natural parks. Culture is very important, with a world-class orchestra, dance companies, museums, and a thriving film industry. The story of Israel, from its ancient beginnings to its modern reality, is more than just the history of one small country. It is a story that touches on some of the deepest themes of human experience: faith, identity, exile, and homecoming. It shows the incredible power of an idea, the dream of a people to return to their ancestral land, to survive through centuries of hardship and become a reality. Understanding this long and complicated journey helps us to understand not only the current situation in the Middle East, but also the enduring power of history to shape our world today.